Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Yuan. And on this episode, we're going to talk about the amazing benefits of meditation on Twin Hearts and how a skeptical software engineer by trade became an energy healer and a believer in this type of practice. Today, we have Eduardo Sztokbant. He has been in Pranic Healing since 2011, and he has used his teachings to not only improve his life on so many levels, but many people as well. And it is Eduardo's mission to use these teachings and to spread them in order to help other people transform their lives as well. So please welcome Eduardo.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of this podcast today with you.
Yes, thank you, Eduardo. And, I really enjoy your background and story because, so many people are, skeptical. They have more of an analytical mind when it comes to a lot of spirituality, healing and meditation. But I would love to dive deep into your story, Eduardo, because you have sort of a very fascinating story in how you came into pranic healing and your journey. And it almost felt like it was something that was calling to you for a long, long time. So can you share that with our audience and how you got started and to where you're at now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to say that I started pranic healing by a happy accident, almost by chance. When I was in my late 20s, I read an article about meditation and how it could help improve certain areas of the brain, and there were studies that would show brain scans and areas connected to anxiety and memory and things like that. And I became curious. I've always been a very curious person in regards to how to make things better, how to improve things around me. And at that moment, I was like, purely out of healthy self-interest, I thought, if meditation is something that can make me more intelligent, why not? I gotta give it a shot. I was a software engineer. I've been a software engineer for more than 20 years now. I was working in corporate. I'm from Brazil. This was back in Brazil in 2011. And I wanted to learn meditation and I didn't know where to go. And I reached out to a great friend of mine who I knew he was involved in something. I knew he would know something about meditation because he was posting some weird stuff on social media about energy and chakras and things like that. And I was like, okay, this guy may know something. And besides, he's a friend who I trust a lot in regards to his judgment because he is an engineer from MIT. Very, very smart guy. We've been childhood friends. We were a little bit not talking too much back then, but I reached out to him and said, hey, I want to learn meditation. What do I do? And he pointed me to a pranic healing level 1 class, a basic pranic healing class. I said, sure, go take this class, the weekend long basic pranic healing training. And I barely read what the class was about. And I'm sure that if I had read a little bit more deeply, I would not have taken the class back then. As I said, I was pretty skeptical. I have an interesting journey in regards to believing in something that goes beyond the physical world, and sometimes having a little bit more faith, sometimes having no faith at all. I remember when I was little, I credit my openness to my mom. And by the way, my mom calls herself an atheist. But when I was little, I asked her, Mom, is there a God? Is there something beyond? Something like that. And her answer was beautiful. She said, I personally do not believe it, but I leave that to you to find out. And she had her own traumas with religion because of the way she was raised. Her parents were quite religious, and that brought some trauma to her life. But I remember my grandma, when I was probably around, I don't know, 3, 4, taught me a little prayer to say before going to sleep. And I was saying that prayer every night. And there was something inside me telling that there's something beyond. I don't know what to call it. I don't know how it works. Is it energy? Is it God? I didn't have that much of that vocabulary back then, but I had the feeling that there was something beyond, and I never found the answer to what I was looking for in religion or in any form of religious practice or any religious leader that I had spoken to. At one point, I would ask why, and how, and at one point I would get an answer that would not satisfy my curious, scientific-oriented mind. It would
Right.
be, at one point it would get to, it's because it's written, it's because it's been this way, it's because someone said so, and I'm like, that's not enough for me. So when I was in my early teens, I kind of gave up and I thought, no, I don't think this is good. I don't think that there's anything beyond that. I know better. There was a little bit of a pride because, okay, I think religion and spirituality are just ways for people to fool themselves into finding some comfort because they have this distress of not knowing what happens when they die. And I think everybody to a certain extent has this a little bit of a fear of this uncertainty. And I became an atheist, but not just an atheist. And I became an atheist activist. I would mock religion. I would mock people who were spiritually inclined. I thought I was better than them. I thought I knew better. And for a little while, I even stopped saying that prayer every night before going to bed. But some funny thing happened is that my life started, some things in my life started to crash. Like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something so intense that I'm like, I'm still an atheist, but just in case, I'll go back to saying the prayer before going to bed because I'm not quite sure. And I digress. So going back to me wanting to learn meditation and still unsure if is there a God, is there something beyond? I went to the class. I went to the class because I trusted my friend's judgment. And I gotta tell you, I didn't like the class. I'm not one of these people who entered the class and as soon as the instructor started speaking, I was like, oh my God, this is for me. I found what I was looking for. No, I was a little harder than that. Like I get into the class, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if we would just, I don't know, hold hands and chant Imagine. I don't know, sing Imagine. And the class starts with the slide. You're not supposed to believe things blindly. You're supposed to make experiments and be open and make your own conclusion. And that was the slide that kept me in the class, looking back, because I was like, I relaxed a little bit. I'm like, okay, I resonate with that. They're not trying to push me any blind faith here. There's a lot of there's this experiment and make conclusions sentiment. There's a scientific orientation that I resonate with, even though I may not believe what these people are saying. But again, I didn't quite resonate with the teachings. I was like, I don't think this is true. Are you saying that I can wave my hand in the air and people will feel better? That doesn't make sense. I didn't quite resonate with the style of the instructor back then. And because of my background in being being a software engineer, being very focused on being more willful, actually, I didn't have the sensitivity it takes to feel energy, to scan. So when the instructor would say, okay, scan this, scan that, I was like, I don't feel anything. Then there were other people in the class that was like, okay, I feel this, I feel that, but I couldn't feel anything. But the teachings didn't make sense to me. They didn't quite resonate with the style of the instructor. I almost consider not coming back for the second day of the class. It was like that. But my main goal was to learn meditation. And on the second day, I would be learning meditation on Twin Hearts. So I decided I had to go back, finish the class. There was something inside me saying, finish what you started. Finish
Right.
what you started. There may be a reason why you're here. There may be a reason why you're putting this class, and okay, let's give it a shot. Finish what you started. And I came back next day, finished the class, went through the moves to learn the techniques, still not believing at all. But I liked the meditation, it made me feel good back then. And first thing that I did after I finished the class was to reach out to my friend who who told me to take the class. And I remember we met for lunch, and my very first question to him, dude, you're my friend from MIT. You're extremely scientific oriented. I've always admired you for that ever since we were like 14, 15. Do you believe those things about energy and chakras, and that you can wave your hands in the air and make people feel better? And I remember he had a huge smile on his face, and he said, yes. And I'm like, why? He shared a little bit of his experience. And actually, as a skeptical, science-oriented person, he told me that he himself spent like a year and a half trying to prove the teachings wrong. He did
Wow.
not believe the teachings himself, but he was curious. He was open. And he was like, you know what? In his words, he was like, this is very creative. All the things connect. I just don't believe the foundation. But whoever came up with this is super creative. But I don't believe it. And I'm going to prove this is not real. So he spent like a year and a half trying to prove the teachings to be not real, until, based on his own experience, he was convinced otherwise. But he told me, whatever I tell you is just my experience, and you can always rationalize someone else's experience. You gotta have your own experience. You know, there's something I read in a book called Jewish Meditation by Aryeh Kaplan. By the way, Aryeh Kaplan is an author that was recommended by Master Cho in the first edition of the Pranic Healing book. And coincidentally, I was drawn to that book. And it was in that book, he said something around some things you can only understand through personal experience. It's like, how can you explain what a color is, to someone who was born blind? You can't. There are no words for that. Or you can use as many words as you want. They will not understand. Or same thing, I come from Brazil. There are different fruits in Brazil, for instance. There are fruits. There's a fruit that I really like called jabuticaba. Very Brazilian thing. I love it. I try to explain jabuticaba to people here. There are no words that I can use that to make you truly understand what it tastes, what's the texture, how does it feel to eat it. Some things you can only understand through personal experience. And when it comes to spirituality, that's how it goes. You gotta have your own experience. You gotta understand based on, first, being open, second, being active, like taking active action towards, okay, I want to understand this, I want to give it a shot. And then, as the slide in Master Cho's class says, then you make your own conclusions.
Okay.
So that's pretty much what my friend told me. And then he said, you learn meditation on Twin Hearts. This is a very powerful technique. Don't underestimate it. It's simple. It's easy. Don't underestimate this technique. Give it a shot. Try it. Try it for a month or two every day. Things will happen. I'm pretty sure things will happen if you're really open, if you really want it. And again, it's funny how the universe works, because I first accepted the challenge. I was like, okay, I'll give it a shot. I started practicing meditation on Twin Hearts every day in the morning. It was the first thing I would do in the morning. I'll sit down, I'll press play for 20 minutes, sitting on a chair. And okay, I felt good. That was interesting. After about 3 to 4 weeks' time, I had an amazing experience. That was physical pleasure that started from my crown, and it was like coming down all over my body. It was extremely blissful. It's hard to describe what bliss feels like. And I believe it's in Autobiography of a Yogi. Yogananda talks a little bit about it, and he says, for the common person, the closest thing to bliss is an orgasm that you can do, the way to describe something like that. And it was a little bit how I experienced, but taking over my whole body. And it lasted for like 14 hours. And it was so intense that I remember I went to work that day and I had a smile from year to year. And I had this friend, he was my mentor at work. And And it was funny. His nickname was the crazy guy in the company because he had experience with all kinds of drugs, and he would share about his past and all his trips and stuff. And I remember very vividly the scene. I looked at him. He used to sit by my left side, and I would share with him, hey, I got to tell you what happened. I did this meditation and I'm feeling this and that, and it's so amazing. And he looked at me as if I was the craziest person he's ever seen. He would not
That's so
understand what I was
funny.
talking
Yeah.
about at all. Like, he was like, I could see it in his face. He was thinking, this is such a crazy dude. And the funny thing that I was getting to, on that night, I was flying from Sao Paulo to Vegas for a bachelor's party. Like, a good friend of mine was getting married, and for whatever reason, the universe decided to give me that taste, that experience. On the morning, I would be flying to this potentially crazy trip. And it was funny because I tried to explain what I experienced to my friends, and during the trip, they wanted to go party, they wanted to do all kinds of crazy stuff, and I wanted to stay in the room. I wanted to meditate again. I was chasing that blissful sensation again. I wanted
Mm.
that again. And I remember my friend, like, frustrated. He was like, dude, you don't go party with us. You stay in the room, and then I come back and I try to be quiet, and I trip in this chair that's in the middle of the room. What's going on? The chair I was using to meditate. And needless to say that as I started chasing the bliss, I would not find it,
Right.
because what brought me to that experience was meditating on the instructions, not meditating on the expectation. That's when I started to understand when Master Choa says, when you meditate, do not meditate on the expectations, meditate on the instructions on the step.
Right.
But one more thing that I would like to share about it. It's not, when you think about meditation, it's not just about feeling high or experiencing bliss. What really helped me value these teachings and understand meditation on Twin Hearts is how quickly I started to realize things were changing inside me. My way of dealing with emotions, my mental processes, very, very quickly started to change in a way it was hard to recognize. Like, I remember back then I had a lot of resentment towards someone, and I felt, I'm right, that person is wrong, that person is a bad person. I had all kinds of justifications and rationalizations. And all of a sudden, I started to realize that, no, this person is not wrong. A lot of these things that I claim that that this person wronged me with, I'm thinking about it now. I've done the same to someone else in the past,
Right.
and in a very, very exact way. I'm like, okay, I claim this person did this to me, but look, I did exactly the same to X. This person did whatever else, but I remember this other situation, I behaved very similarly. And I realized my double standard, how quick I was to forgive myself or justify, oh, but I was at that moment, it makes sense to me because of this, because of that, but I was not forgiving to that person. And I had this strong realization. And actually, it was funny. It was my birthday. It was on my birthday, 2011, that I had this strong realization that if I consider myself to be a fair person, if I consider myself to be a good person or someone who's trying to improve, who's trying to get better, because I always had this inside me, I have to treat this person the way I treat myself. So if I'm quick to
Right.
forgive myself, I have to forgive this person. Or if I'm going to think that this person is a bad person, I have to think that of myself, and I do not agree with that.
Yeah.
And that was very humbling. And I was like, I'm sure it's this meditation that I've been practicing that's
Well,
changing these patterns in my mind. Like, it was so powerful that I could not deny that there was something going on. And it was this meditation. And I was like, back then, barely understood energy. I barely understood healing. I barely understood the power of meditation on Twin Hearts. And by the way, even after so many years practicing almost on a daily basis, I've certainly done practice this meditation thousands of times. I still consider that there are many, many layers that I'm yet to discover. I was sure that there was something to it. So I reached out to the Pranic Healing Center in São Paulo and said, hey, make me a package deal. I want to learn I want to take all the classes. I want to learn these things you're teaching because I'm convinced this is the real deal.
Yeah.
I'm convinced there's something to it. I'm still not sure about these things about reincarnation or
right, all these big spiritual topics that people tend to fumble around, and there's a lot of like you said, it's hard because you have to experience it yourself to know and understand, and some of these topics are so above our heads that it's hard to understand that. But I just want to kind of recap for everyone, Eduardo. You've mentioned quite the transformation. I have to give credit to you for someone, like you said, you were like an atheist advocate, and to be willing to try this meditation and, like your friend said, to try to prove it wrong, right? But you still went with it, and to see the transformation. And it wasn't like you were looking for it. You just did it out of a, scientific mind. All right, this is the instructions, let's do it. And it sounded like you had that incredible experience, what we call a state of ananda or total bliss, which is incredible, because I've had that myself. And like yourself, I try to chase it after. Like once you had it the first time, you try to like, okay, I want to jump right back into that state, which you mentioned. It's challenging because, like the teacher said, it's not about the state that you want to chase. It's about following the instructions and sort of the journey and getting there. And I think your story is so amazing, right? Because it goes to show that, like Master Choa's teachings, right? It's like instructions. If you follow the instructions, whether you have doubt or faith, it's like baking a recipe. If you follow the instructions, you will get what you will get at the end of the recipe. And that's what I find also so amazing with pranic healing, is that it really is a science. It really has been very creatively thought out, like your friend said, and it produces the results. And, from your experience, I resonate so well with that, because that was my experience as well. It's like, oh, what is this? How does it work? And, oh, I guess it does work after, you practice it for a while and you keep going. Because I find a lot of people, if they don't get the experience right away, they will, jump to conclusions, say that this doesn't work. But for a lot of people, it takes a little bit more time. And, I wanted to really highlight, again, you came from a background that was so staunchly, against spirituality, right? And to make that dramatic shift to where you are now and talking about forgiving people and seeing the person inside of you, right, almost as a side effect, and not looking for that. I think that's part of the power of Twin Hearts meditation, and how, even though it's so simple, it has so much incredible, results. So, to kind of like jump that forward in speaking about Twin Hearts. So you did it, and then you took all the courses, it sounds like, and now you're in this position that you're spreading the teachings and you're trying to help people, embody and try it out and experience it for themselves. What has that journey been like in terms of that next half? Now that, like, okay, this works, I'm going to try to teach this to people and spread it.
Yeah, absolutely. Couple of years later, which was 11 years ago, I was moved to the United States. It was a career move back then. And immediately when I came to the US, I was going to start working and living in Seattle, Washington. The first thing I did, even before I moved, was to let me check where's the Pranic Healing Center in Seattle. And I started Googling, and I realized that there was no center in Seattle. There were like a few volunteers that were organizing events. And I remember my first reaction was, how come I'm being sent to a place where there's no Pranic Healing Center? Almost immediately in the next moment, it came to me, oh, maybe I'm supposed to join these people and help them with building up the community over there. Maybe there's a purpose to it. So the first thing I did was to connect to the volunteers here and say, hey, I'm just relocating to Seattle. I see you are organizing events, you're organizing meditation nights. I was already actually organizing meditation nights every full moon in my place in São Paulo. And I I decided I wanted to continue with that practice. And so I connected to the people there, and I I started to participate in the healing clinics. I started to organize meditation nights here, and I was encouraged by one of the volunteers to join the leadership program with Master Cole. And this was 2014, and I joined it. And since then, I started to teach introductory classes, these 2 hour long classes in which we go through the basic principles of pranic healing. We talk about the chakras. We talk about how and why pranic healing works. There's a little demo that I do, some random person from the audience, as the structure for this class I learned from Master Cole. It's very well put together, so I learned how to teach this class. And as I started teaching, I feel very energized. I feel it's just right when I'm helping people start this journey. When I see, even if it's just one person, their eyes shining because, oh, wow, I'm starting to realize there's something here that I didn't know there was before, which was a little bit of where I come from. Because when I realized that, okay, this is amazing, I want to know more about it, my curious mind would not let me ignore it anymore, because now I know something. I know there's something to be explored. I cannot ignore it. So when I'm able to spark this curiosity in people, it brings me tremendous fulfillment. So I continued. I never, even though I was working in corporate, I was still holding my 9 to 5 job as a software engineer. I started to think of ways of sharing these amazing teachings that transform my life with other people, so to transform their lives as well. I started to think of, I remember in a retreat in Brazil, Master Danny, one of the master pranic healers, he said, you gotta find creative ways to serve. You gotta find unique ways based on your skills to serve the world, to help humanity. And first thing that came to my mind was like, okay, I'm a software engineer. What can I do with that? How can I help do some sort of volunteer work with that? And one thing that came to my mind was like, maybe talking a little bit about Arhatic yoga. When I came to Arhatic yoga, I'm not sure if people in the audience here knows, but Arhatic yoga is extremely well structured and has a lot of practices of purification, character development, meditation practices, and you're given a schedule. And there are some things you are supposed to do every day, some things you are supposed to do every week. And I wanted to keep track of that. So I'm like, is there an app for that? No, there wasn't. So I decided to create an app. So I created this app called Arhatic Yoga Journal that I continue to develop and maintain. That helps myself. I use it for tracking my practices ever since then. And it's a way to help other Arhatic yogis to track their own practices. And it's very fulfilling to writing this kind of software. To me, is more fulfilling than writing some random piece of a big engine in a corporate world that I don't even know how or if it's actually helping someone. So to answer your question, when these teachings became part of my lifestyle, I decided to find ways to share them, to help people get in touch with them. And I continued working as a volunteer in the clinics. I decided to step up my healing skills. I took the Associate Pranic Healer certificate that was back in 2017, and I started a side gig as a healer. And that was something that had never crossed my mind before. Even after I was already into pranic healing, I know these teachings are good. I know this is real. I was a lot more interested in the personal development part of it, the spiritual practices, the character building, Arhatic yoga, than actively doing healings. But at that point, it just felt natural that I had to step up my healing skills and start helping people with actual healing. And that became my side gig until recently, when after I got disconnected from my last corporate job, I looked within, and by meditating, listening to my heart, I started to realize that helping people directly in this more personal contact, either one-on-one or teaching, is something that really opens my heart.
Mm. Beautiful, Eduardo. That's so incredible to hear, and I can definitely just share with the audience the passion and almost compassion that you speak with the words that you're telling me, and how much that resonates with me. And just like you said, right, when you can have the teachings almost be built into your life and in your work, it's so much more fulfilling. And to know how far you've come, right, to from being a atheist advocate to now being almost a spiritual advocate, right? To know and spread the teachings of meditation and energy healing, and talk about, these crazy things such as chakras, and how it does have an impact on people, right? And you're helping demystify that and to share it in a practical way, just how, it has helped you in your work. So I'm so incredibly, grateful to hear that, because I think, like you said, sometimes you moved to a city where there was no center, and you're like, oh, why am I here? Why was I chosen to be here? But you understand sometimes, as they say, when you walk down the path of spirituality, right, you might not know where you're going, but as you keep walking, the path will show itself. And that sounds like, your incredible journey that you've been on. So again, so grateful for you to share that with us all. And to kind of close the podcast, Eduardo, and to highlight your amazing experience, from where you've came from and where you're at now, what would you say is like one best piece of advice you've gotten for yourself, and something that you've really tried to embody on a daily basis? What would that be?
Thanks for this question. Yeah, that's easy. This is something I share in every intro I teach. I say, if there's one thing that I would like you to get from these classes, be open and experiment with meditation on twin hearts. The challenge that was given to me more than a decade ago by my friend who introduced me to pranic healing, he said, experiment with meditation on twin hearts daily for at least 1 or 2 months. It's important to think of this frequency, this consistency for this time is what changed my life. Like, it's important to practice a healthy dose of skepticism. I still have that. It's also very important to be open, because rejecting things without experimenting is just as unscientific as believing things blindly. Again, practice meditation on twin hearts, experiment with it. Experiment as a scientist, experiment as a curious person. Use your inner child that has this curiosity about life, about discovering what is out there. Experiment with meditation on twin hearts. Give yourself the chance, the opportunity, and of course, make your own conclusions. As Master Trust says, your conclusions are the conclusions of the student. I don't expect them to be the same, the understanding of the teacher, but I encourage you to be open. I encourage you to explore, because this is what has changed my life for the better. And this is what I believe will continue changing the lives of people, one person at a time, all over the world.
Could not have said it in a better way, Eduardo. Well, thank you so much, my friend. That was an amazing piece of advice, and something I will take heart myself. And thank you again for this conversation. I'm sure it has touched the hearts of many people, just you sharing your story and journey so sincerely, and to come from your background, from being so skeptical to now, embodying it in your everyday life, in your work. And even like you mentioned, you've used your skills as a software engineer to develop something to help people on this path as well. So incredibly grateful for you as a person, Eduardo. Thank you for this conversation. I will take everything that I've listened today to my heart as well, and try to improve on how I can, help people in my own special ways. And, doing this podcast is just a one of the forums that I like enjoying, just speaking with people on this. So thank you everyone for listening to this episode. If anyone wants to reach out to Eduardo, I will have all of his social media and links down below if you have any questions or want to join Eduardo's events. I know he does it on a regular basis, and just like how I've come into pranic healing, you never know what happens after you do some of these intros and how it'll transform your life. So thank you so much again, Eduardo. Atma Namaste, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast, and take care, and we'll see you in the next time.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. I appreciate the work you're doing.